Unit 1 on page 1 is titled Competing Theories of Colonialism. To begin with, Papua New Guinea as a nation started in 1884. All right? That is where colonialism and the concept of colonialism was brought onto the shores of societies in the Pacific region. It was because of German advancement on the north of the Pacific communities during that time, and present-day countries like Samoa. They advanced down to what is called back then the German territories, and they established what is called the New Guinea Company in 1884. So because of that establishment, the Australian colony in the south under the British declared the British protectorate in 1884. So this is where colonialism came into the shores of Papua and New Guinea. Back then it was called the New Guinea and Papua territories, administered differently up until 1949 rather. So if you look at on page 1, unit 1, and we like to go through with the objectives first. So if you look at the objectives, number 1, after going through this unit, you must be able to summarize what or the idea of colonialism. Okay, what is colonialism? Number 2, you must be able to describe the main drivers or driving forces of the 19th century colonialism. And number 3, discuss how colonialism is both a political and economic phenomenon. Now, let's look at what constitutes or what is colonialism. Now, in any chapter, in any article, including this one, the first opening sentence is always this sentence that gives you a general idea of the whole story. So when you try to look into or read the study guide, you first locate the objectives and ask yourself, okay, by the end of this unit, I should be able to do 1, 2, 3. After understanding the objective, you look at the first sentence. And I'll read the first sentence now. The first topic provides a theoretical framework to the study of Papua New Guinea politics. So that sentence will tell you alone that the unit 1 is going to be talking about the theoretical framework of colonialism. Okay, so what is colonialism in its framework? All right, so second sentence, and I'll read. This framework helps to establish the reason why colonialism was a global process reaching Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Pacific. It also discusses the main forces that led to the colonization of these 4 regions of the world, and in so doing, how they also led to the spread of capitalist economic system. Analyzing theories of colonialism is necessary to see the bigger picture. All right? So, what the framework is trying to talk about can be found in paragraph 2. So, the framework that we are interested in is understanding the what are the forces behind colonialism? There are three mentioned here. If you look at page 1 and page 2. Number 1 is colonialism itself. Number 2 is political dimension, and number 3 is economic dimension. All right. So, in order to understand colonialism, you have to describe the dimensions of colonialism. When you describe the dimensions of colonialism, you are actually talking about what is called the theoretical framework. So, number 1, what is colonialism? One of the main driving forces. So, colonialism, according to this reading here, is the idea that powerful countries or developed countries, especially in Europe and North America, would not only protect themselves, their peoples and ways of life, but also spread their beliefs, values and cultures to other people in other parts of the world by exercising control over their societies. So the justification here is that colonialism was supposed to spread the beliefs, values, and culture of the developed world onto the underdeveloped world. So that is basically what this paragraph is trying to say. So now we understand that colonialism is a belief system that is spread from the developed countries to the underdeveloped. So back then it was the Northern America and European countries were the colonizers. So they were able to spread their beliefs and value system. The reason why you are sitting here and you are using the English language, you're getting an education, is an example of the legacy of colonialism. Their belief system, their culture. English language is their culture, it's not our culture. Okay? So that is one driving force. Let's look at the second driving force. So it's straightforward, colonialism. The spread of belief, culture, and tradition by developed nations or countries, especially in the European and North America, to those less developed. And we are categorized as developing. Let's look at the political dimension here. Page 2, paragraph 3, titled Political Dimension or Political Dimensions. Then I'll read, and then I'll try and explain the paragraph. Political dimensions of colonialization in Papua New Guinea included the creation of local government council under the Local Government Council Ordinance, Tutus, Luluais, Kiaps, the Legislative Council of 1951, the First House of Assembly in 1952s, 50s and 60s. All right, so the paragraph here, when colonialism, okay, the first dimension talks about spreading of belief and culture, that can also be explained here as well. We have borrowed a representative democracy. The idea of it is an example of that belief and culture that is spread, and we've embraced that as our political system as well. But this dimension here is talking about the establishment of political institution being brought by the colonial era. So, for example, 1884, Papua was declared as a British protectorate and German occupied New Guinea. 1906, Papua was, the British transferred the territory of Papua to Australia, and the reason being that 1901, Australian government received its independence. So Australia was given the mandate to take charge of the Papua territory. 1914, World War I to 1918 saw the Germans defeated and New Guinea territory being administered by Australia. 1949, Papua and New Guinea territory came into one through the Papua New Guinea Act. In that creation of a political institution, in 1949, political structures were created. 1951, this eventuated to the first Legislative Council. 1964, the first House of Assembly election. 1968, 1972, and then self-government in 1973. So colonialism, the second dimension of it, colonialism brought in political structures. And then political structures later became the core, let's say, or after independence and self-government, Papua New Guinea adopted those political structures, and it is still being relevant today. So those institutions by 1975 created the Papua New Guinea Constitution. Papua New Guinea Constitution derived most of its mandates and its vision from all those existing structures being placed since 1884. So those structures was brought forward by colonialism. So that is the second dimension. The last dimension is the economic dimension. I'll read. Colonialization led to the introduction of cash economy in PNG. Plantations were established for cash crops such as copra, cocoa, and rubber. Copra, cocoa, rubber, and coffee. The reason why German came and established its plantation in New Guinea was because they wanted to extract raw minerals, okay? Extraction of resources. Now, extraction of resources, when they established their plantations, they had to recruit laborers. The recruitment of laborers, the extraction of resources led to exporting of those resources, and this eventually led to establishment of commodities, agricultural produce, cocoa, coffee. And after 1884, and after, let's say, during the period from 1884 to 1978, colonialism introduced our people the idea that we can earn an income through working on the plantation. So the plantation economy brought to our people the idea of cash, the idea of money. Okay, I read the second sentence again. Plantation was established for cash crops such as copra, cocoa, rubber, and coffee. Most of these plantations owned and managed by expatriate planters such as Germans and Australians. Merchant trade was run by expatriate firms such as steamships and Ben's Village. Alright, so this paragraph here talks about how that was going on, and in summary, how our society was introduced to the idea of menial labor and cash. Now we were introduced to this idea that there is a currency called money. Before that, we have our own currency, and that is through barter system, trading of pigs and important items. But colonialism brought us this idea of cash as a form of money or value. All right? So this is the main drivers of colonialism. So what are the main drivers of colonialism? Colonialism itself, which talks about the spreading of values, beliefs, culture by a developed nation to the underdeveloped nation. Secondly, political dimension. Political dimension talking about how colonialism brought in important political structures with it. Those important political structures helped to assist in developing the nation state of Papua and New Guinea. The very reason why we have adopted the representative democratic system is because of the political structures introduced by colonialism. Thirdly, economic dimension. Colonialism brought with it the idea of cash as a means to trade and as a means of value over what our society is normally used to, pigs, totems, and all those things. We've now introduced the idea of cash and working for money or working for cash, labor. Okay, so let's go back to the objectives and see if we can summarize or if we can understand the objectives and articulate it clearly. So by now, we should at least summarize the idea of colonialism. So in one word, the idea of colonialism, according to this text here, is the idea of spreading the beliefs, knowledge, or let me summarize like this. Colonialism is the idea of spreading a belief, a political and economical, or let's say political and economical institutions and beliefs, customs, and traditions from a developed nation to the underdeveloped nation. So that's basically what colonialism. The important word is the spread of belief. All right. Second is describe the main forces driving the 19th century colonialism. The main forces we have talked about: colonialism, political dimension, and economic dimension. And discuss how colonialism is both political and economic phenomenon. Political in such a way that it establishes important institutions and structures of government that is borrowed and carried forward by the independent state of Papua New Guinea. In addition to that, colonialism brought us the idea of working for money and the idea of cash. All right, so this is how you go about in studying the unit. You start from looking at the objectives, reading the first sentence, and then you look at what is referred to. Okay, there are indicators there. So that sort of concludes Unit 1.